Welcome to our Dementia Friends information session, which I hope you will find interesting, informative and inspiring as the session goes on. I need to move my slide across, which bear with me while I just find my cursor. Slides aren't moving, Joe. There we go. So this is how our webinar will work. I'm just going to share the slides and presentation with you, and we're going to use the chat box just to share a little bit of things. So this is our first opportunity to use this chat box, if that's okay. I'd like you, please, if you could, to tell me in the chat box, what's the first word that you think of when you hear the word dementia? And I'll just scroll through them as they come up and start to share those with everybody as they say them. So what's the first word you think of when you hear the word dementia? Memory, loss of memory. Yep, thank you. Loss, memory. Forgetful, vulnerable, confusion, difficulty, loss, struggling with memory. I'm reading these out on all your behalves as they're coming through. Lack of memory. Yeah. And definitely sort of when I have given this information session before, those are definitely the words that have come up sort of more frequently than not. In fact, I gave this session on Monday, and it was the first time I'd heard one particular phrase used that I was like, I've never heard that before. And it was sort of positive, rather than what I'm going to come on to next is just say, you know, do we think these words are positive or negative words? And of course, our overriding kind of sense of the words that we've heard is that it's a negative perception, isn't it? They're negative words. And if I can just get the slides to move, this is, you know, these are perceptions of dementia that we have as a society. And they are, you know, words such as devastating, misery, confusion. Aggression is sometimes a word that I hear. Anger, victim, a wanderer, misery, suffering, and they're all words, aren't they, that have a negative connotation to them. And that's why the Dementia Friends has been set up and established by the Alzheimer Society in a way to try and change those perceptions and address the fear and stigma around dementia. And that's why we're so pleased to have you all here with us today, because you're all going to be part of that as we go forward. So what is Dementia Friends? Essentially, it's a social action movement, and it was established to try and increase the understanding of dementia, to inspire action, increase awareness. And it's been led by the Alzheimer Society to help create dementia-friendly communities. The idea being that if within our community, our town, our village, our workplace, where we might socialize our evening activities, such as, you know, whether that's WI or our walking club, if we can create an environment there where those people have an awareness and understanding about dementia and how to support somebody to live well with the dementia, we're creating a dementia friendly community which helps somebody to live well with their dementia, and we're reducing the fear and the stigma that we've seen in society that is associated with dementia. And it's about understanding 5 key messages and committing to becoming a dementia friend. So these are our 5 key messages that we're going to go through this morning. And the first one is, and as I press the button, these are all going to fill the gaps, is that dementia is not a natural part of aging. And we're going to go into each of these in slightly more detail. Dementia is caused by diseases of the brain. Dementia is not just about losing your memory. It is possible to live well with dementia, and there is more to the person than the dementia. So those are the 5 key messages that we're going to come away with by the end of our time here this morning. So the first key message is that dementia is not a natural part of aging. So what they're trying to say to us here, I'm just going to go back a slide to make sure I get to the right spot. Yeah, what they're trying to kind of get across here is that not everybody who grows old will develop dementia. So it's not the natural part of growing older. And also that not everyone who develops dementia is old. So there is a number of people in the UK alone who are under the age of 65 who have dementia. And those statistics are such that sort of there's, you know, give or take, but 850,000 people in the UK living with dementia. And there are more than 42,000 people in the UK under the age of 65 living with dementia. And if anybody saw the BBC's Dementia Choir, you will have seen within those people who were part of that programme that there were at least 2 people that I'm aware of who were under the age of 65 who had dementia. One was a gentleman in his 30s, had a young family. Another one was a lady in her early 50s, and she had dementia. And I thought that that was a really insightful way of showing through that programme and through that choir and that group of people that dementia is not a natural part of aging, but also that there are people under the age of 65. It is rare, but there are some people who are younger for whom that affects. The second key message is about how dementia is caused by diseases of the brain. So in the same way that any organ in our body, our heart, our lungs, our liver, our kidneys can all be affected by a disease, dementia is a condition, a disease that is caused by diseases of the brain. And we want to just try and help explain how that is. So I want you to imagine a collection of fairy lights. We are coming into Christmas season. You may, for those of you who are super keen, be starting to pull, I'm looking at Jade, pulling your Christmas tree lights out to start to have a look and check that they're all working and checking in. And you plug those fairy lights into the mains, don't you? And they're all in a cluster in a bundle, because that's how we've put them away. And this is your brain. Your brain is a collection of thousands and thousands of fairy lights. And each of those fairy lights represents a skill, a function, a memory that your brain does. And you plug it in, you plug those lights in, and your hope is, of course, that all of those fairy lights are going to come on. What happens with dementia is your fairy lights, your brain of fairy lights are on, but what happens with dementia is that some of those fairy lights may start to flicker. So they go on and off. Okay, it might be that some of them go off completely, and it might be that some of them just dim. So they might flicker, they might dim, or they might just go off completely. And for each person, this will happen in a different order, and different lights will be affected. So trying to imagine those thousands of fairy lights in your brain, and they all represent a different skill and function. And some of them, when affected by dementia, may flicker, and they may dim, or they may go off, and they'll go off and that'll happen in different orders, in different places of the brain for different people with their dementia. Okay. Like with anything else, I guess the idea that, if we can have a healthy lifestyle that features regular exercise, a balanced diet, no smoking, that can all help to reduce our chance of developing dementia. And if anybody's kept up with things that have gone on this year, there's been lots of research and announcements as to things that might affect us developing dementia, but also about research into treatments for certain dementias, which has been really encouraging as the year's gone on. But what is dementia? So often the words Alzheimer's and dementia are used interchangeably. I guess that we're thinking of them as the same thing. Dementia is actually an umbrella term for over 100 different types of dementia, of which some of them have names. So we may be familiar with Alzheimer's disease, vascular dementia, dementia with Lewy bodies, frontal temporal dementia, Pick's disease. And under the umbrella term, as I say, there are over 100 different types. And somebody might have a mixed dementia, so they might have 2 different types. They might have a dementia associated with Parkinson's disease, for example. Dementia might be associated with having alcohol or long-term alcohol and substance abuse. Might be a traumatic brain injury. So there are many different types, and that's why it's important to understand which one somebody has. So having a diagnosis helps us to understand what might happen in terms of their progression, because each of them have a different progression. It's a gradual, it might be a gradual progression in Alzheimer's disease. It might be more of a step-like progression as it is in vascular dementia. All dementia is progressive, but it is different for each of the ones. So by having a diagnosis, that helps you to understand how you might best support somebody through their dementia journey, and also yourselves, and how to care for them and how to get support. So that's why we would encourage people to get a diagnosis. And the other reason for encouraging people to get a diagnosis is, of course, short-term memory loss, which is the most frequent associated symptom with Alzheimer's disease, could be caused by other things. So it could be caused by having a urinary tract infection. Short-term memory loss might be caused by sort of medication not quite being at the right level. So whether that might be somebody's thyroid medication or diabetic medication or something like that. It could be that, frankly, life is just very busy and our brains are very full, but we're feeling a little bit forgetful and we're a bit worried about it. Menopause, brain fog all causes a little bit of, unable to find words and forgetfulness and things like that. So it is important to go and seek that advice because, fear and stigma is part of our, who we are and how we process things. But if we can go to the GP and just rule some things out, but also then maybe get a diagnosis, that can be really helpful to us in understanding what's happening for us. The third key message is dementia is not just about losing your memory. So if we go back to thinking about the fairy lights from earlier, other than memory, our brain controls all of our functions. It does everything that, that we do. And so other things that could be affected by somebody's dementia could be motor skills. So that could be using a knife and fork, sequencing. Everything we pretty much do during our day is a sequence of events, whether that's getting up, going to the bathroom, having our breakfast, brushing our teeth, getting dressed. That's a sequence of things that we do. Making a cup of tea is very much a sequence of things that we do in order to make that cup of tea. And sometimes with dementia, that could be very difficult to continue to do those sequencing. So we might do things in a different order or find it difficult to perform a task. And that might be that we then put on 2 jumpers but don't put on a skirt, or we make the tea in the wrong way so that maybe even the tea bag doesn't even make it into the teacup. And those are the kinds of things that might happen for somebody who is experiencing sequencing difficulties with their dementia. Changes in inhibition. I've heard a few stories about this now, but somebody who had been perhaps shy, quiet person now becomes outgoing. It's almost as though the filter has gone, where you kind of would hold back on saying something because it's not appropriate to say it, but that filter goes and you say it. So there's an example of a professor, for example, who was very shy and wouldn't have spoken necessarily out of turn in public, but with his dementia would be quite vocal and outspoken around people's appearance. My goodness me, what's she wearing that for? Well, they could have done their hair, or those kinds of things that we perhaps wouldn't have said out loud and thought, but that becomes something that people might say. Visual perception is something that can also be affected by somebody's dementia, and I think this is quite an important one to try and understand a little bit more. Changes in perception. Shiny floors might look wet. Fruit on a decorative tablecloth might look like it's real fruit. So that might mean that the person might try to pick up the apple that's on that tablecloth and think that it's a piece of fruit that they can then go and eat. A swirly carpet might look like snakes. Another example of if you were going into going around your local town, going to the bank and the post office and the shops, trying to maintain that routine of being able to go out and do all the things for yourself, but going into somewhere where there's a black mat as you open the door. For somebody with dementia who has a change in their visual perception, that black mat could look like a really big hole. And so trying to take a step over that or into that building means going into a hole. And that could be really, really scary for the person with dementia and make them not able to do that, might make them become quite rigid and static and unable to move, might make them feel anxious and unsure about what to do. And if you were with them whilst that was happening, it might be that you feel a little bit awkward or embarrassed because there's a queue of people behind you also trying to get through that door, unable to quite know how to get out of this particular situation or move things forward. And if by having an awareness of that this could be somebody who has dementia, who sees this black mat as a big hole, you as the person who's with them might then feel able to say to somebody around you, do you mind just going in and asking if somebody could come out to help us because we're not going to be able to come through here? Or do you think there's a side door, or or we might have to come back another day? Or just feel slightly more confident in being able to explain why you're not able to go through the door and then they're not able to follow you in. It also will help you feel a bit better if people around you have an understanding of that, because if people are feeling a little bit frustrated or exasperated or tutting, then that feels a little bit awkward or difficult, doesn't it? So if we've created a dementia-friendly community where everyone has a slightly greater understanding of that, then that helps to make that easier for somebody, but also allows that person with dementia to continue to live their life with their dementia in a way that they've been doing, which means being able to go to the shops and the bank, maybe supported by somebody else, but continues to do that. And Santander, for example, have pledged to look at their surroundings and their environments to make those as dementia friendly and accessible as possible. And again, by promoting a dementia friendly community and other businesses being dementia friends and looking at their property and premises, you're also creating an environment where other people will be able to continue to come in and do their daily tasks, shopping or weekly tasks, and feel that they are living well with their dementia by being part of an environment that supports them to do that. Communication is something that can also be affected by dementia. So forgetting words or using the wrong words. So keys are a great example, aren't they? We have keys for many things, get access to our front doors, going to our cars, and we can see a bunch of keys on the table, and we know that they're keys, and we can say the word keys, but we can't quite remember the word for car or house. And so I can't say to you that they're my car keys. I can just know that they're keys, but I can't quite remember that word that is for the car. So any area of our brain that our brain controls everything, doesn't it? So therefore anything that I guess our brain controls could be affected by dementia. And I guess as things progress, more things are affected by the dementia. The fourth key message is that it is possible to live well with dementia. And what we're trying to say with this is that people will continue to work, drive, have relationships, but what they do and how long they can do it for will depend on their individual particular circumstances. And living well will mean different things to different people. We're not saying that dementia doesn't bring about challenges, because it does. And these challenges will be different for everybody. But what we're trying to say is that, even with these challenges, it is possible to live well with dementia and to support somebody with support and understanding. I'm just going to check so how can we support them? Well, in terms of communication, listening, repeating back what you've been told, just so that they understand that you've heard them correctly, reducing the distractions, so turning off loud TVs, turning the radio off or down can help to just make communication a little bit easier. Speaking clearly, don't use euphemisms. Language is complicated enough, but if we can take away the euphemisms, then that can be helpful. Body language, can our body language reflect the message that we're trying to give? Maintaining eye contact. Maybe using some aids, so pictures or visual aids rather than words, just mixing it up a little bit, I guess, and offering the opportunity to make that. So the best obvious example of that, I guess, is toilet signs or some other signs that might be in shops and things that just are visual rather picture rather than just being words, can be helpful as well. And it's about treating people with respect, isn't it? And treating somebody as the human being they are, not speaking down to them or treating them as a child, and just communicating and treating somebody with the respect that we should treat everybody anyway, isn't it? The fifth key message is that there is more to the person than the dementia. And so in the same way that we look at somebody with cancer or diabetes and see the person first, we want to try and see the person as the person and not to see the dementia. So what does dementia look like? Well, it's you and me, 1 in 14 people have dementia. So it could be the person that we're stood next to at the till, at the supermarket, person that we're queuing up next to at a concert, whoever that may be. And I'm going to tell you a little bit of a story about how just understanding somebody's reality and where they are with their dementia journey can be really empowering to them if we can just understand that a little bit. So this is an example from a care home in the Northeast, and it's a true story. There was a lady who moved into the care home who had dementia, and she moved into the care home on her own. There was no sort of family support in that move into the care home because they didn't live nearby at all. In fact, they lived in another country. And when she moved in, it was noticed that she constantly tapped. You're not going to see me tapping on the table, but essentially she just constantly tapped on tables and surfaces. And this was a noise. And this, I guess, was annoying for the staff and the other residents, perhaps the visitors, because all she did was tap, 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 and nobody knew why or what she was doing it for. She did have a niece who lived in Australia who came over to see her. And she came to the care home, and the nursing staff asked her, could you tell us why she taps? What's that all about? And she didn't know. She hadn't seen her aunt in a long time. She wasn't sure where the tapping had come from, why she started it, and what that was all about. But she was there for the afternoon and spent some time talking together about her aunt and her aunt's life and the things that she had done in her life. And as they were talking, they discovered that during the Second World War, she'd worked at Bletchley Park and she had helped to crack the Enigma code. And actually, what was just seen as tap, tap, tap was dot, dot, dash, and was her way of communicating with everybody, because that was where she was with her, in her reality of her dementia, and she was communicating through a dot, dot, dash. But of course, they hadn't known anything about her life and hadn't really realised that this possibly was what was happening. One of the things that then changed for this resident was that people's attitude around her changed. They saw her as a heroine. The local papers actually came to do a story, and the scout leader in the local area read the story, and his scouts were learning Morse code, and he approached the care home and asked the care home if they could go in and learn from her. And actually this was a two-way street, because of course they were able to learn from her with their Morse code, but she was also able to communicate with them and share with them what she would want to say to the people who she now lived with. And this had a huge positive impact on her, and the engagement helped her to feel valued, happier, engaged, and to live well with her dementia. And I always like to think that maybe one of the things that she first said to the scouts was, could you please tell them I don't like sugar in my tea, so that she could have a cup of tea that was exactly as she wanted it, and perhaps not as people perceived she needed it, because they weren't able to ask her, or for her to tell them what she wanted. There is another example of this from another care home, from a gentleman who he used to sit in the foyer, in the entrance area, reception area, every day, and he was unable to share with people what he was wanting to say. But people used to come past him all the day. Delivery drivers, staff, residents, visitors, whoever it was, would be coming backwards and forwards, going past him. But he would sit there and be very animated in a very agitated way. So he'd be like getting really cross and really frustrated with people, but unable to say this out loud. And people didn't know why, and they couldn't ask, he couldn't tell them why. And I think people started then going a different way, or wouldn't make eye contact with him, or not acknowledge that he was there, or just try to make their lives more comfortable, easier. I don't know what the expression would be really, but they would not go past him, and he would then probably feel less engaged with. It came to light that during the war, he'd been in charge of an area where there were landmines, and his responsibility was to keep everybody safe. And as part of that was telling people where not to go. And in this area in the care home where he took responsibility for, to his mind and for where he was with his dementia and his reality, was these were mines that people were walking through, and he was absolutely trying really hard to keep them safe, because he didn't want to see them hurt or injured in any way. So this agitation that people were seeing was him trying to say, do not go there, you cannot go there, there's a mine there, you need to go another way, or you need to come through. When this was realized by the team, by the staff, they were able to say to him, Bob, is it all right if we come through here? Is it going to be safe? Will we be okay to come this way today? And he'd go yes or no, and they'd find a way, and they'd be able to dialogue with him and chat with him about what was safe. Of course, he then felt valued, engaged, happier in his environment, because people were understanding and respecting that he had a role to play, and it was a really important role, because he was trying to keep them safe. And it's just another example of there's so much more, isn't there, to the person than their dementia. Somebody has lived a life, they have done things, they have experienced things, and we're going to come on to a little bit about why it is that during their dementia journey, at this point in their lives, this is the part of where they are living. It's not living in, no, their memories are not here and now, their memories are from much earlier in their lives, and that's how they're responding to where they're living now currently and what they're doing in their lives. So we're just going to move the slide along. Dementia Friends is about turning understanding into action. So keep in touch with somebody you know who has dementia, and stay in touch with them, take them out on trips if you can, read to them, listen to music, read poetry. Music is so powerful, so powerful, as is poetry for people with dementia. If anybody has seen, again, the video about the lady who was a ballerina and with her dementia was unable to communicate with anybody, was was in a wheelchair, was wheelchair bound. And as soon as they played some music, ballet music from her ballet youth, she couldn't get herself out of her chair, but she was animated with her movement in her chair and was doing all of her ballet moves. And because that was evocative to her and just brought out that for her, that was her reality of her dementia. The Alzheimer Society is here to support anybody and everybody affected with dementia. That's the person themselves, their carers, their family. Their website has got so much information on it that can help to support you and to signpost you, maybe prompt you to ask more questions, seek out more information. So please know that their website is there to support you with that. Let's not use the word sufferer. Let's not use the term dementia sufferer. Let's use the term a person living with dementia, because the word suffering or sufferer, it goes back to that earlier slide around negative connotations and negative societal negative views. And actually the press have promised to not use the term dementia sufferer in their reporting of dementia. And actually, if you listen closely to like things on the BBC News, for example, I've spotted that they don't say that, they say person living with dementia. And that was a big win for the Alzheimer Society and Dementia Friends when they said that they were going to do that, because it really helps to I guess, set that narrative that we want to change the way that we frame things and word things, and actually we can use something differently. And person living with dementia is a much better phrase, because that feels much more supportive. So we'll come back to those 5 key messages just as to round this part of the presentation off. Dementia is not a natural part of aging. Dementia is caused by diseases of the brain. Dementia is not just about losing your memory. It is possible to live well with dementia, and there is more to the person than dementia. We're going to use a bookcase analogy now, which was described to me when I had my training, and is how it was explained to me, which will help you to understand how dementia can affect a person. It's not a scientific explanation, and we must remember, of course, that dementia affects everybody differently. So I want you to imagine that this is me, this person in the middle of the screen, and I am 80 years of age. And to my side is a bookcase, and that bookcase is as tall as I am. And each of those shelves represents books of my life. So they represent a memory or a fact. And you can see that the books that are towards my around my shoulder height, those are my most recent memories. So those will be the things that I have perhaps done this morning: having my breakfast, maybe going for a walk, getting the paper, walking the dog, brushing my teeth, getting dressed. Those are the things that are the most recent to me. And as we go down the bookcase, around my shoulders are are my books from my 60s, such as my retirement party, maybe going on that cruise, joining those clubs that I joined in my retirement, finishing work, all those things that I've done since I hit retirement. Maybe that's, looking after grandchildren, going on holidays, all those different things there that I might do. As we go down the bookcase and we get down to my knees, those are the books from my 20s. So that might be meeting my partner, getting married, starting a family, our first home, starting work, whatever that might be that I was doing in my 20s, now that I'm 80 years of age. By my feet are the books from my childhood, such as going to school, or playing out with my siblings, family home, holidays with my parents, but things from my childhood. I want you to imagine that this bookcase is being rocked by dementia. And as it rocks and moves from side to side, what happens is that the books from the top of my shelf, so my most recent memories, will start to go off that bookcase. So they start to move around and start to fall off. This bookcase of mine, this bookcase on the side, is a bit of a flimsy bookcase. It's not very resistant to dementia. And so as it rocks, those books start to fall away. And so I think what this bookcase analogy shows us really well is that as my dementia progresses and those memories and those books start to fall off, the books that I am left the most with are the books from my 20s. And those examples of the lady and the gentleman in the care home who were in their reality around their time during the war, this might be where they were with their bookcase, and those are the memories that they were currently with. So that bookcase has been rocking, and those skills and those memories are starting to come away. And the books that I am left with, I guess the most of them become those books from my childhood. And those memories that I think of as being my most recent memories are actually ones from much earlier in my life. We also have another bookcase, which is on our other side, if you like, and it's a much sturdier bookcase. It's made of solid oak, and it's much more resistant, I should say, to dementia. And these are books that are my emotional memories and my emotions. And because it's a much more solid bookcase, it's you know, the contents of it are a little bit more safer from the dementia for longer. And each of the books have a corresponding thing. So each of the factual books has a corresponding emotional book, if you like. So my feelings around when I was at school and having an inspirational teacher who just made me feel inspired has an associated emotional memory of feeling inspired within the bookcase that's on the other side. I'm going to give you a little bit of an example, I guess, of how the bookcase might work. And that might be that we've gone out for the day, you've taken me out for the day, and we've gone home and we've had an argument because I can't remember, I'm the person with dementia and I can't remember your name. And the argument, you know, is quite heated, and you as the person who's been with me might leave thinking, oh, do you know, I didn't like that was horrible, but they're not going to remember it. They're not going to remember that argument because that memory is going to go from the bookcase. What happens though, of course, is the argument evokes feelings of upset and sadness and, you know, and anger and maybe even distress. And those feelings will remain with me, even though I can't remember the fact that we've had an argument. So that memory goes, you see the little boiling down, and I'm left feeling sad. We're going to move on to a different example, and that is that we have been out for the day. We've gone to the seaside. We've had a lovely day. The sun's been shining. We've had ice cream. It's been really, really lovely. And I've taken so much from it. And I feel really happy, and I feel really contented, and I'm feeling very smiley. But of course we get home, and let's be honest, a lot of us who live in Leeds, we're a bit landlocked. So actually going to the seaside is a bit of a trek. It takes us 2.5 hours to get there and get back. And frankly, I've probably taken the day off work to do that with you. But we get back and you can't remember that we've been to the seaside for the day. You can't remember the ice cream, and you can't remember that we've had a lovely time. And I leave feeling a little bit disgruntled because, you know, a lot of effort goes into going out for the day, doesn't it? And going to the seaside and having the ice cream. And I forget about the ice cream. And I ring you at 3 a.m. and say, where have you been for today? You haven't done anything. You haven't been to see me. I've forgotten the ice cream. But actually what remains with me is that feeling of contentment and happiness and other such things. And the dementia choir, again, another excellent example within there was the lady who was in her 50s, was visited at home by the host, who's the actress Vicky McClure. She went to her house and said to this lady, oh, it's choir tomorrow. Are you looking forward to it? And the lady was looking a bit at her a bit quizzically and a bit blankly and saying, I don't know what you're talking about. What choir? What choir is this? I haven't been to choir. I'm not part of a choir. And I'm certainly not going to choir tomorrow, was kind of her response. And so Vicky said, oh, well, when you come to, you are part of a choir, and when you come to choir tomorrow, we're going to practice the song that we sang. And she started with the title of the song and started singing it. And this lady went, oh, I love that song. Absolutely love it. And it evoked completely this memory of joy and happiness from singing that particular song, and looking forward to being able to sing that song. And I thought, again, it was a beautiful example of the bookcase analogy of, I can't remember what I've done or what I'm going to be doing, but I can absolutely remember that feeling of joy that came from being part of that and doing that as well. So I thought that was really, really special. This is a bit of an activity that requires us to kind of share with you some sentences that are going to kind of demonstrate to us about how much do we know about somebody who has dementia. So I'm going to just check the next slide and see. Yeah, so I haven't got, I'm going to give you a description of somebody, and just hold it in your mind or write it down if you can. So the description of the person is, you are 73 years old and you are diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease 6 years ago. You live with your partner in your family home. So when we do this in person, everyone gets a slip of paper with somebody on. They get told to be quiet about who's on their piece of paper. And I read out 10 sentences, and then they have to say if they think their person can do it. In the spirit of Zoom, I'm going to share with you the description of the person, which I've just done. And then I want you to see whether you think your person who I've just described can do these things. Okay. And just keep to yourselves the numbers of times you say yes to each of these sentences, but add them up. So there's going to be 10 sentences. Add up the number of times you think yes is the answer, and then we'll just come to a little bit at the end where I'm going to get you to put your answers into the chat box. So just as a reminder of the description, you are 73 years old, you are diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease 6 years ago, and you live with your partner in your family home. Can you do it? Are you able to make a cup of tea unaided? Just a yes or no. Though some people have been putting perhaps, but just a yes or no. Are you able to do the ironing? Can you vote in an election, making an informed decision? Are you able to dress yourself? Are you able to follow the plot of a TV programme? Are you able to go to the local shop and return safely? Can you still have a relationship with your partner? Are you a volunteer at a local charity shop, serving customers and working the till? Can you make cheese on toast on your own? And can you complete a crossword puzzle? So just leave that on the screen for a little bit longer so you can see them. Are you able to make a cup of tea unaided? Are you able to do the ironing? Can you vote in an election, making an informed decision? Are you able to dress yourself? Are you able to follow the plot of a TV programme? Are you able to go to the local shop and return safely? Can you still have a relationship with your partner? Are you a volunteer at a local charity shop, serving customers and working the till? Can you make cheese on toast on your own? And can you complete crossword puzzles? So you will all have a different number. If in your chat box, if you just put the number of yeses that you've got, just so I can get a sense of things a little bit. So you might have one, you might have none actually, you might have none, you might have one, any number up to 10. Let's see where we're all at. So Katie's put 1, Stephen's put 10, Jonathan 5, Amy Rose has put 8, Josie 8, Hazel 5. So you can already see there's a real spread of numbers, isn't there? 6, 7. Yep, 3, 8. Some of you put a few words in saying, oh, it's a bit difficult actually, because I need a little bit more information. Yep, somebody's put in number 1, somebody's put in 7. Brilliant. So I think hopefully what you can see by just saying them out loud to you is that we've all got a different answer. And we probably could do with knowing a little bit more, couldn't we? Because we don't know enough about the person. So the real reveal is that you've all got the same person. That's all fine. You've all got the same character, which you all knew. The point of the exercise is just showing you that dementia is unique, because no one person was right or wrong. And actually, we know very little about the person from that description and their circumstances. And everyone will experience their dementia in their own way. Did the sentence tell us anything about, the person? No, it didn't, because they could have worked in a cafe for 30 years and made cheese on toast every day. Does it tell us anything about their partner? No, because it didn't tell us anything, and they could be the main carer for their partner. Doesn't tell us whether the house is dementia friendly or not. Doesn't tell us if they did crossword puzzles every day anyway. And it doesn't really add anything to our understanding, being told that they were diagnosed 6 years ago, because they could have been diagnosed at a very early stage or a late stage in their journey. And it's just a way of showing you, I guess, that we may have been thinking of a particular person when we were answering those questions, so that might have influenced our kind of thought process. We make judgments and assumptions about people all the time, and we might have been doing a little bit of that. The impact of when we make assumptions about whether somebody can or cannot do something, of course, has an impact on that person. It could cause them to feel disskilled or frustrated, demotivated, losing confidence. It's always better to do it's always better to do with somebody than to do for. So if there's an opportunity to do something with somebody rather than doing it for them, we're in helping them to still feel that they are able, because they are and can. And by assuming that somebody can't do something, we are increasing their experience of disability. So I guess the purpose of the exercise was just to show to us that everybody with dementia is unique and everybody's journey is their journey, and that we do make assumptions as we go along, don't we? And these slides are just saying, what I've just said, that, the impact could be that somebody loses confidence. And if you've met one person with dementia, then you've met one person with dementia. And just by increasing our awareness and understanding of their journey, we can help support them with their journey, if that makes sense. Just going to skip over this exercise, if that's okay, just in the spirit of time. And just to say, as we start to bring things to a close and recap on our 5 key messages, so just so that we've got the chance, maybe if people want to talk or ask something, is that dementia is not a natural part of aging. It is caused by diseases of the brain. It's not just about losing your memory. It is possible to live well with dementia, and there is more to the person than the dementia. And it's about how can we turn this understanding into action, and there is no action is too big or too small. And there are a number of things, I guess, that people could be involved and get involved with. And you've already done something today, because you've joined this and you've taken part in today, so which is already doing something, so for which we're very grateful and thankful. You could stay in touch with somebody who has dementia. You could help make the work of the Alzheimer Society possible by fundraising or making a donation when you see that they've got some activities going on. I do believe that around Christmas time, there's something about being an elf for a day, which you could get involved in. They do their memory walks, don't they, and taking part in their memory walks. So there's many opportunities for supporting fundraising. And as of next year, the Alzheimer Society are slightly shifting their focus on their work, and it's going to move more towards, and it's always been involved in, but it's going to move more towards the research side of things, but also supporting people with their dementia and their carers. I think there's been they're moving from creating this dementia friendly communities, but still want that to happen, but they're shifting their priorities, and it's all going to be on their website for people to see what that is. You could volunteer for an organisation that helps people with dementia. Could just be more mindful and aware when you're out and about. So, the understanding about why somebody can't go through a door, or if somebody's struggling with their change in the till, just giving them a bit of time and space, and understanding that could be because they have dementia and they're just trying to work out what's going on with the coins in their hand, and encouraging people not to get frustrated. Sign up to things on the Alzheimer's website. And I've got a twiddle muff. I don't know if anybody of you have ever heard of these or seen these. So this is, you could either make one of these or provide things that could go on to a twiddle muff, so that somebody who does make them could then put them on. So essentially these are like a Victorian hand muff made of wool, and on the outside are things that people with restless hands, and some people with dementia have restless hands, can play with and use and touch, and they're very tactile. And then they have things on the inside that they can also do. So once your hands are inside, there are things to fiddle and play with. And actually, I think these have their reach extends beyond dementia, to be fair, to maybe somebody with autism or ADHD might find these useful. The only thing I would caution with, if that's okay, is that if the person has propensity to put things in their mouth or to pull on things and maybe want to do that, then this is not the thing, because that's dangerous. But there are versions of these that don't have the things on them that you can touch, but are just wool and you can pull, and actually that keeps those hands busy as well. We gave one to a lady a couple of weeks ago, and she was absolutely in her element, just tugging away, and it wasn't going to break or pull, and she was very strong. But it meant that the family weren't worried about her putting things in her mouth, which was really, really good. So you can share a digital badge. So you should be able to access the digital badge by this QR code, or texting the word friends to 82772, or visiting the website www.dementiafriends.org.uk/webinar. And that's how you can become a dementia friend. This is how they've adapted it, I guess, for the world of Zoom. So just a little bit there for how you can do that, if that's okay. Further support from the Alzheimer Society. They have a Dementia Connect support line. They have something called Talking Point. It's just an opportunity to chat online with people from the Alzheimer Society, which is great. And then there are local offices. So depending on where you live, and I guess just doing a little bit of an internet search or trying to find their phone number means that you can contact your local office of the Alzheimer Society. And there are many other things in local areas as well, isn't there? There's many older people services. The third sector older people services might have memory cafes, an opportunity for respite, a chance to do music. We have a lovely lady with us here, I'm going to give a bit of a shout out to, who I know goes into care homes and does singing with residents and supports people living with their dementia every day by her work of going into the care homes and doing that. So a big shout out to Melody, because I know that's what she does already. But because music is so evocative and so powerful and so important and just brings everybody together, doesn't it? But and is a real memory point. And so by being part of today, you've just become part of the 3.3 million dementia friends. And for that, we're very grateful to you.